To start, we need to go back in time, far from the modern Mattel Jurassic World toys, past Kenner's Jurassic Park dinosaurs, and past the cheap plastic dinosaurs of the 80s and 70s, and finally to the American Museum of Natural History in New York, where small and large metal dinosaurs were sold in gift shops. These metal dinosaurs were introduced in 1947. The details are basic by today's standards. They'd be sold throughout the 1950s, until they were sold to a Japan company, where the molds be used as plastic instead of metal, throughout the 80s. The smaller dinosaurs were $1, and the larger ones were $3. They also include a collector card, saying the basic info, like where they lived and what they ate, and what time period. There was the Tyrannosaurus Rex, the mammoth, now dinosaur, and the Mosasaurus, also not a dinosaur. The Plesiosaurus, yet again, not a dinosaur. A Pteranodon, not a dinosaur. A Stegosaurus, the Trachodon, and a Triceratops. There was also the Dimetrodon, which was very popular at the time, even though it wasn't a dinosaur. And of course, there was the mighty Brontosaurus. There were actually two versions of each dinosaur, a small version and a large version. Take the Trachodon for an example, where you can find it in both small and large, as well as the Stegosaurus, I believe. Nowadays, though, these guys can actually fetch pretty high prices if they're in good condition and not broken. Now, around the time when a lot of kids' metal dinosaurs were breaking, came around a new type of dinosaur toy from a toy company called Marx. The Marx Toy Company is known for producing small plastic toys during the 1950s. And in 1955, the idea of the Marx Toy Company creating dinosaur toys had finally gained enough traction for the company to produce 3 different molds to be sold at dime stores from 10 to 25 cents each, and they sold quite well. And at the 1956 Toy Fair, they showcased an idea for a dinosaur playset with waterfalls, hills, and a lake in the middle. The beautifully painted display was a hit, and many retailers began asking to display the Marx dinosaurs in their stores on it. But they soon realized that making the terrain entirely out of plastic would be expensive to produce. The idea would have likely been forgotten if someone hadn't come up with the idea to vacuum form the land piece, which was inexpensive at the time. If you don't know what vacuum forming is, look it up yourself, please, because it's hard to explain the process. So the land piece was put into production, but only as displays at stores, and it helped the toy sales. They also started handing out small education booklets about the dinosaurs. Then they made tiny cavemen, but they were too small to be used as bin toys. But they were perfect for the playset. They made the cavemen in different colors, like white and tan, and very occasionally red, brown, and gray. And for the playset, they produced a few more dinosaurs and non-dinosaurs. And finally, the playset was released in 1958. Here's it advertised in a toy catalog. There was also some trees and ferns in the playset too. And of course, the dinosaurs. There were the larger ones, like the Tyrannosaurus Rex, the Brontosaurus, and the Kronosaurus, a marine reptile. The medium-sized ones were the Pteranodon, a flying reptile, the Allosaurus, a Trachodon, a Hadrosaurus, the Stegosaurus, and the Ankylosaurus. The smallest ones were the Triceratops, a Plateosaurus, and some Permian creatures like the Dimetrodon. The box features some nicely drawn dinosaurs too. Throughout the 50s and the 1960s, Marx would then update their landscapes of their playset. None of the dinosaurs were really changed, other than the T-Rex, who probably had the most changes. It went from the original landscape to a more rocky terrain. There's even a giant dinosaur mountain you could also get too. Marx ended up retiring their playsets in 1979. Like I said before, the T-Rex ended up having the most changes. It used to look more pot-bellied than it does in the later sets, as you can see here. As you can see here, the T-Rex's head and body have been changed quite a bit. I believe both of them are based off of paintings. But because of how popular they were, they've spawned a variety of knockoffs, in which you can still find to this day. Here's a couple I own personally, which I surprisingly got from the dollar store. You can really see how much the T-Rex has changed. The original has a lot more details. His right leg is 3 sticks instead of a foot. You can also see how smooth he is now as opposed to his original counterpart. His face is now in a very warped position. The Brontosaurus still resembles the original a lot more than the T-Rex, and he still has some of his original details too, but he's a lot smoother than the original. Out of all the knockoffs, I think the Stegosaurus resembles the original the most. He still has pretty much all of his detail, and they didn't really warp too much of him. The Trachodon, though, definitely looks a bit different. On the original, his hands were in a pronated position. This knockoff is not in a pronated position, too. His arms are also a lot more thin compared to the original. I think the Allosaurus definitely looks like his original counterpart a lot more than the other ones, just a lot more smoothed down. The Triceratops has definitely had his fair share of changes. His details are a lot more different compared to his original counterpart. His horn is in a weird bent position, too, and his frill has been quite warped. Although the Ankylosaurus still looks pretty good, though. Just like the Stegosaurus, I think the Dimetrodon details have been left there, just some slight changes to it. But in 1964 came along some highly influential dinosaurs at Sinclair's World's Fair. In 1964, at Sinclair's World's Fair Dinoland, where some of the most accurate dinosaurs at the time were made into life-size animatronics. There was the giant Brontosaurus at the entrance, hinting at what's inside. The dinosaurs featured was the Struthonimus, a Trachodon, a Tyrannosaurus Rex, obviously, the Triceratops, the Ankylosaurus, the Corythosaurus, and Ornitholestes, and a Stegosaurus, of course. Throughout the park, you could find mold-o-rama machines. How the mold-o-rama machines worked was you would insert a coin, and extremely hot liquid plastic would fill a mold right before your eyes. And once the plastic would be cooled, it would deposit it for you to take home. The dinosaurs were based off the ones found in the park. There are 7 different dinosaur toys you could get, like the Triceratops, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which has a very large head for some reason, the Brontosaurus, the Stegosaurus, the Trachodon, and the Corythosaurus, as well as the Ankylosaurus. All of these were actually pretty accurate at the time, but they were not the only dinosaurs you could get. There was also small dinosaurs you could get in gift shops, which I think some of them are the Marx dinosaurs, but just slightly modified. Now, during this time in the 1960s, another toy company called Ajax produced large hollow belly dinosaurs. And you may notice here, even if they're carnivore or herbivore, they all have a mouthful of carnivorous teeth. And the Stegosaurus has a huge head. Unlike some of the dinosaurs by Marx, these guys are actually hollow. I find the T-Rex's position kind of interesting. He's in kind of more of an upright stance. And the Brontosaurus has kind of a humpback to it. During this time, you could find a lot of small, cheap plastic dinosaurs with minimal detail from all sorts of retailers. But a popular one you tend to see is the eraser dinosaur, which you could find anywhere from a dentist supply prize to a carnival. These guys are actually still around to this day, except they've just been slightly modified so they could be held on tops of pencils. But during the 1970s, there was a surge in popularity in dinosaurs, which was actually perfect because many Chinese companies were shipping toys to America. This was Dino Mania, or the year of the Chinosaur. Founded in 1968 by a Holocaust survivor, Imperial Plastic started off in Canada, but moved to producing their toys in Hong Kong because it was cheaper to produce there. But because of that, their toys usually contain a dangerous amount of lead in the plastic and paint. And if you're like me and you own some of them, there's an easy solution to solving this by spraying them with Krylon clear encapsulation, since true lead encapsulation is very expensive and you're never sure if it's clear or not. Yeah, people have been known to get lead poisoning from these guys, so be careful if you ever want to get one. Imperial Plastics produced a variety of toys like snakes and tortoises and etc., etc. But in the 1970s, in Dino Mania, they started producing plastic and hard rubber dinosaurs. And most of them were pretty accurate at the time. Most of them. These dinosaur toys were unlike any dinosaur toy ever seen. They were very different and they were large and quite unique. Here's a toy catalog featuring some of these dinosaurs available at the time. As seen in the toy catalog, you could find many of the Imperial Dinosaurs in display boxes at 5 and dime stores, grocery stores, department stores, pretty much anywhere imaginable. From what I've seen, there was 2 display boxes, one selling 3 of their herbivorous dinosaurs, like the Styracosaurus, who came in 2 colors, one with stripes, and one without stripes. There's also the Stegosaurus, who was very popular at the time, who was orange and yellow. There was also a few variants of the Triceratops. One was brown and black. The other one was the brown and black, except with red on its face. There was also a orange and yellow version too. The other set you could get featured the very popular Tyrannosaurus Rex, the Brontosaurus, and the Brachiosaurus. The Brontosaurus came in quite a few color variants. This is the one seen in the catalog. It's purple and a light blue color. There was also another one that was that same blue color, except it's pink instead of purple. There was also a gray and green version with red eyes. And a green one with some brown on top of it and a white underbelly. The other version I could find was yellow with a white underbelly and red eyes. I'm sure there are more color variants I just missed. And of course the Tyrannosaurus Rex, who was very popular at that time. He was yellow with green on top of him and red around his mouth, like he just ate a dinosaur. And here's the Brachiosaurus. Just like the Triceratops, there's actually a couple of variants of him. This is the one seen in the catalog, who's a pinkish, reddish, and yellow. There is also a green and yellow variant too. And a bluish, grayish one with a white underbelly with yellow eyes. And a primarily blue version. I'm guessing there are some variants I missed, but there are just so many of them. but they made a couple different versions of some of the dinosaurs, like the Tyrannosaurus Rex, who had a completely different mold. There was also a completely different sculpt given to the Triceratops, which is the one I own. And for some very weird reason, they decided to give it meat-eating teeth. But actually, it's not terrible compared to some of the other dinosaurs we'll get into later. All of those dinosaurs I showed you were produced in 1985, but those actually weren't Imperial's very first dinosaurs. Their first dinosaurs were produced in 1979, and they were far from accurate, like this T-Rex with Stegosaurus plates. They combined traits of many different dinosaurs. There were two variants of the T-Rex with Stegosaurus plates. One was green, which is the one I own, and there's also a yellow version too. They also produced a Baryonyx, but I'm just guessing. If the proportions are all wrong, it has very long legs, its head is too big for its body, and for some reason it has 4 fingers and 4 toes. There is also the Parasaurolophus, which I own, and I've nicknamed him the Screaming Parasaurolophus, and you can see why. Unlike their 1985 dinosaurs, these 1979 ones were made of a more rubber material than hard plastic. There was also a Hadrosaurus you could get too, which I think that Hadrosaurus is the most accurate out of all 4 of them. Alright, fast forward from 1979 back to 1985, where you could actually buy collector sets too in catalogs. Just like the display boxes, the collector sets had beautifully illustrated dinosaurs on the boxes. In these collector sets, you would usually get 3 dinosaurs, but there's also the deluxe collector set, which featured most of the dinosaurs you would find in the display boxes. But just as you could find the display boxes in stores, you could also find exclusive color variants of some of the dinosaurs on card backs. One of the exclusive color variants I could find was this dark green and brown Tyrannosaurus Rex. And as you can see, some of them featured a bonus dinosaur, which usually was a very inaccurate small herbivore. This one comes with a Triceratops with a mouthful of meat-eating teeth and spikes along its back. Another one was this red and black Triceratops. And as you can see, it features some very beautifully illustrated dinosaurs. There is also this purple and blue Stegosaurus. I personally like him a little bit more than the red and tan version. You could also get some of the bonus dinosaurs just by themselves too. As you can see on this one, they're calling it a Allosaurus. To me, it just looks like a Corythosaurus with carnivorous teeth. Here's a Stegosaurus and Ankylosaurus full of meat-eating teeth. It's weird seeing that as an illustration. But unfortunately, just like Marx dinosaurs and some of the other companies we'll get into, because of how popular they were, there was a variety of knockoffs you could find, like the T-Rex with Stegosaurus plates, or for some reason, an enlarged version of their meat-eating Stegosaurus. I'm okay seeing a meat-eating Stegosaurus in a small version, but a large version just looks weird. There is also a variety of knockoffs of their Stegosaurus. For example, this one is dark blue and a lighter blue color. There's also these electronic remote control dinosaurs I forgot to mention. I'm not sure which toy company made these. They might be Imperial. I couldn't find much information about them, but they were advertised in a Toy Sears catalog. Now, I just keep forgetting stuff. In 1990, Imperial also made these roaring dinosaurs with light-up eyes, like their T-Rex and a Triceratops, too. That's about it for Imperial's dinosaurs. Now, during that time in the 80s, there was also another toy company who produced one of the most iconic dinosaur toys of the 80s, and that company was Dorme. Dorme is a Hong Kong company founded sometime in the late 1970s. They're most known for producing a variety of toys like insects, lizards, turtles, pretty much any little animal trinket. They're most well known for producing a variety of Godzilla knockoffs, though. But they also produced one of the most iconic dinosaur toys of the 80s, and that was the Dorme T-Rex. This toy was so popular, it was even found in the background of many TV shows in the 1980s. Here's an advertisement in the 80s showing off some of Dorme's toys. And I'm sure the translator had a mishap, because it says, "We are proud in a wide range of top quality crying animals." Crying animals. Okay. I mean, they look like they're screaming to me, but I mean, hey, whatever floats your boat, I guess. But actually, that's all I could find on the company. There's not too much else out there. Now, I'm sure all of you dinosaur toy fans like myself know how popular and iconic the Papo running T-Rex is nowadays. Well, the Dorme T-Rex was essentially that in the 80s. Dorme would purposely make their dinosaur toys, a lot larger than the other companies, so they'd stand out on the shelf a lot more. And I own the T-Rex knockoff, and the T-Rex is no exception. It is humongous. Here's to compare to some of the modern Mattel toys, just so you can see how large it really is. Now, a unique feature with most of Dorme's dinosaurs were they can actually swallow stuff, because they were hollow. Some of Imperial's early dinosaurs could also do this too. Here's it compared to the epic roaring T-Rex, a standard Mattel Atrociraptor, and you can really see how large it is. Besides the Dorme T-Rex popping up in 80s TV shows, the Dorme Triceratops even was featured in Jurassic Park 3 as Ellie's little kid, Charlie, was playing with it. I find it funny because Dr. Grant said the Triceratops was a herbivore, when literally this toy has a mouthful of meat-eating teeth, so I can understand Charlie's confusion. There was also the Stegosaurus, and the most common version of it was a blue and kind of a highlighter yellow color. There was also the green version with a yellow underbelly and orange plates. I like the color of this one the best out of all of them. There was also this dark green version with a yellow underbelly, and you can see his little tongue is painted too. And probably the most obscure out of all of them was this version with a tan underbelly, brown, and dark red stripes. I always thought the tail was a bit too thin to hold those big thagomizers. I'm positive I've missed a couple of variants of Dorme's dinosaurs, but at the time of recording this is all I could find. They also made the Ankylosaurus, who looks more like a lizard to me. He's red and with a tan underbelly, and his little spikes are painted too. He's in more of a lizard-like stance. Instead of having a tail club, he now has just two spikes at the end of his tail. But not all of Dorme's herbivores look like herbivores. Take the Brontosaurus for example, who has a body like the Brontosaurus, except his mouth is full of meat-eating teeth. And he just looks very weird like that. There are 3 variants. One you see here, it was yellow with brown stripes. The other version was yellow, but instead of brown stripes, he has brown airbrushing across him. And probably the most obscure out of all of them was this brown version, who has a lighter brown airbrushing across him, a gray underbelly, and black stripes. They also made a Styracosaurus, who you get in 3 colors, like this one, who's a pinkish color with green dry brushing, and he has a mouth full of meat-eating teeth. I thought this one was interesting because it has little bumps where its 2 horns would be, like a Triceratops. The second version with that same pink color and green, except this time he has a white airbrushing on him. The third version I could find was yellow with purple and blue on him. And this toy specifically appears like he's gone through some playing. And there's the previously mentioned Triceratops, who, of course, has a mouth full of meat-eating teeth. This Triceratops came in 3 color variants. The most common is red with black airbrushing across him, and I do believe he has the same body as the Styracosaurus. The second version had that same red head, except this time his body is blue with green on him. Very obscure colors, if you ask me. The third and final version was this brown version, with a darker brown airbrushing on top of him. There's also the Adaphosaurus, which many people have gotten mixed up with the Dimetrodon, and I can understand why. Adaphosaurus was a herbivorous dinosaur, a Permian reptile, not a dinosaur. And I'm guessing they decided to add meat-eating teeth to it, and that's why it looks like a Dimetrodon. There was 2 color variants, the more common red and yellow underbelly version with blue eyes, and the more rare version, which I didn't even know existed until I was doing research for this video, was a yellow version with blue on its feet and brown airbrushing. Okay, at the time of recording this, I actually came across a 4th version of the Styracosaurus. My editor app will not let me add it to the list of Styracos. So anyways, this version is dark green with lighter green airbrushing on top of him and a yellow underbelly. Dorme also made this monstrosity. I don't know what this thing is. It looks like a guy in a dinosaur suit with Stegosaurus plates along his back and a weird Ceratosaurus horn. It's weird looking. I'm not sure what they were thinking when they made it. Dorme also produced a Brachiosaurus, which to me looks an awful lot like the Imperial Brachiosaurus. Anyways, I had read a story on Dinosaur Toy Blog about how when someone was a kid, their parents used to like to perch on the Brachiosaurus, and soon later died. Just like Imperial, Dorme's dinosaurs have a dangerous amount of lead in the plastic and paint. Pretty much do the exact same thing I told you with Imperial's dinosaurs if you own some of these. With that out of the way, Dorme's Brachiosaurus is gray with a darker gray dry brushing across him, or airbrushing, and light yellow tannish feet and a big tan spot on him. But just like any popular toy company, there was knockoffs of Dorme's dinosaurs. Like this T-Rex, who's purple with a highlighter green on his back and a black stripe. Except he's just been a bit smoothed down. This knockoff T-Rex pretty much has the same colors as the original, just some slight changes like large eyebrow ridges, and the teeth are more rounded than the original. There's also this green version too, which I like the most out of all the knockoffs. He's primarily a lighter green color with some brown airbrushing, and some black stripes on him. And this company did a terrible job at rubbing off the Dorme stamp, as you can see. There's also this tan and blue-gray version too, with yellow eyes. As you can see, because of how popular Dorme's T-Rex was, there's a lot of knockoffs. Like this gray version, who pretty much looks just like the original. Even the yellow and black on his back is the same colors as the original, except now he's gray instead of that purplish pink. Then there's the knockoff Ione, who pretty much looks just like the original, except he's now more of a purple color than that purplish pink, and he has more brighter red eyes. The most obscure colored T-Rex out of all of them was a tan version with purple and blue stripes and a bit of orange on him too. There's also a knockoff of the Brontosaurus, which is actually very common at that time, and I like the colors on him a lot more than the actual Dorme brand. He's pink with dark green on him and some lime green on his back. There's also a knockoff of the Adaphosaurus, who looks pretty much just like the original, but with a slightly altered spine and black along its spine. Dorme's dinosaurs were released in 1985. Forgot to mention that. And that's pretty much about it for Dorme's dinosaurs. I do briefly want to touch on a couple other companies that produced dinosaurs during the late 80s and 90s, like Play School, who produced the lineup of Definitely Dinosaurs, who were some of the first actually moving dinosaurs at that time. Playskool also produced a variety of other dinosaurs for their series, like a big T-Rex, a Brontosaurus, a Stegosaurus, etc. They also produced many cavemen to go along with the dinosaurs. I really just wanted to go over the untalked about dinosaur toy waves like Dorme and Imperial, so I'm not going to go over stuff like Bone Age or Dino Riders. If you want info about those two waves, check out Dumb Jake's video. This is the thumbnail, so I don't really want to cover it. It's taken me a very long time to make this video already, so yeah. Or The Complete History of Jurassic Park Toys by Trevor C. I didn't want to cover Jurassic Park Kenner toys because it's been covered many times before, and specifically in this video too. Now, modern toy companies like Papo and Slike and Safari Ltd. would all produce a variety of dinosaur toys, until, finally, the modern Mattel Jurassic World dinosaurs would come around. Oh yeah, and then the crappy Hasbro dinosaurs. We don't talk about them. And that is the complete history of dinosaur toys.